Jews can eat cheeseburgers due to a misunderstanding.
It's a misunderstanding? Interesting. Go ahead, but tread lightly.
Let me explain. The source of the prohibition on mixing dairy with meat comes from a single verse that appears twice in the Bible.
Actually, it appears 3 times. But let's go and let's hear what you have to say.
Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk.
Seethe, is that a fancy word for cook? Because tavashel is to cook. Go ahead.
The rabbis took this ban on cooking a goat in its mother's milk and extended it to all meat and dairy, even chicken, which doesn't even produce milk.
It wasn't a magic wand. The rabbis create guard fences and guardrails so that people don't violate the biblical verses. Because, first of all, the Bible doesn't oftentimes talk specifically to every single animal. It's not a exhaustive list. Instead, I'll give an example and you could apply it to others. As far as chicken is concerned, that was later in the Talmudic times, actually, and that was because chicken looks similar. We don't want people to start getting mixed up.
But what if this isn't what the verse meant at all?
Do tell.
When we look at the verse in Deuteronomy, it appears with other dietary laws, but in its earlier original appearance in Exodus, the context is completely different.
Now, I'm going to hear what you have to say, but you have to understand, if you have 2 verses, one is in dietary laws and one is not, what do you do with the verse in the dietary laws? Do you completely ignore that one?
It's among laws about bringing animals for sacrifice at the temple.
Yes, which makes sense, because dietary laws came out of eating meat from the temple. As a matter of fact, there is no allowance to eat meat if it is not a sacrifice until Deuteronomy. When the Jews were still wandering in the wilderness, the only times they were actually allowed to eat meat was when they would bring a offering or sacrifice, which is why they complained they had no meat to eat, because there was no offering or sacrifice. That's why God brought them the quail. Quail is not meat. They could eat quail without having to bring it as an offering. Then when the temple, the tabernacle, the Mishkan was assembled, then the only way they were allowed to eat meat was if they brought it to the temple. Later on, Moses says, you're going to go into this land and you may live far from the temple, or you may just want to have meat and not give an offering. I will then allow you to then eat meat without having to bring it as an offering.
So why would a cooking rule appear there? Here's the key. Hebrew is written without vowels, so we can't be certain about some words. The verb translated as seethe, tevashel, could just as easily be tafshil, meaning ripen or mature. This makes much more sense in context. What the verse actually meant was, when your she-goat gives birth, don't wait for the newborn to ripen on its mother's milk. Bring it to the temple right away.
You're right, words are written in context, and the context has to be to cook, because it makes no sense what you're saying. You're saying that the second a newborn is born, it has to be brought to the temple? For what purpose? As a matter of fact, there's another verse that says you cannot even bring an animal as a carbon, as an offering, until it's 8 days old, and I'm sure in its 8 days, it actually had its mother's milk. So what are you talking about?
It's amazing that from this tiny misunderstanding, a whole set of dietary rules emerged.
No, I heard enough. It was not a misunderstanding. You are completely misunderstanding how to read basic Hebrew, how to read biblical Hebrew. Please do not spread your disinformation. Thank you so much.